It's such a 2025 thing, I
It
feel
is.
like that that is just you
Good.
tell me that 10 years ago, I probably would have had a crazier reaction, but I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, it, I'm
We're
sure.
we're
You
not
know?
surprised. We're not surprised.
Yeah, right.
And then they're making soap bars out of it, which if that's the
Right.
case, I'm also like, how sanitary is that to use?
That's another thing too, is like, yeah, like what's the sanitization
Yeah.
process? Like, you know, um, it's wild.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. I'm sure we'll get a documentary on it or
Yeah.
something, behind the scenes. But let's get the how it's made crew like into the
Yeah.
factory and see
Hmm.
like, okay, one droplet here and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because that's wild. All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Banter on the Rocks. We're on episode 41 at this point. Today is Tuesday, June 10th. Got myself, Tim, here, as well as John. And yeah, got a lot of great stuff planned for you today. But before we move on, of course, wanted to stop and talk about our brand ambassadorship with Find the Good brand. Find the Good is focused on the good and building a community of people who want to help find the good. For all purchases, Find the Good gives back 10% to Mental Health of America organization. And when you order, be sure to use Banter 805 and you'll receive 10% off of that purchase. So that's 10% back to you and 10% back to mental health. Remember to use Banter 805 for that 10% off. And the mission for Find the Good is simple. Find the Good is here to get you through the bad days, the breakups, the ups and downs, and whatever stands between you and a smile on your face. And on today's show, we will be discussing, of course, starting with our banter takes. Moving on to NBA update. Series is tied 1-1 for the NBA Finals between Oklahoma City and Indiana. Then we will be talking some baseball. And then finish up with possibly some pixel gaming and Baldoni and Lively. Some updated
Hmm.
news with that drama saga. Um, moving on to our banter drinks of the week. I'll get us started here. I am having God, what is it? A rum and raspberry lemonade combo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, well, a little sweet today, John. It's been warm,
Nice.
summer's hitting. Been a long few days of work so far, so needed something refreshing, and here it is. It's been
Yeah.
good.
That's good. That's good. That sounds delicious. I'm doing the same. It's been a busy week, busy day, so I'm doing a passion fruit with tequila today. So went back
Yeah.
to my old tequila. Always good, tasty. Weather's getting a little warmer, so I think it's a good pairing as well. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
it's what you got to do. Starts getting toasty, just go for those cold drinks.
Yeah.
Put the whiskey away.
Yeah, so whiskey away. I was gonna do whiskey, but I didn't have any. I was gonna try to do it on the rocks, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to get a little too tips, today.
Turn.
So went with tequila today, so not a bad thing. But we're gonna start going on TikTok live as well. So for those watching us live, welcome. Thank you for joining us. But we'll go off. We'll go into our first take, or our first segment, which is our banter takes. And our banter takes are takes we share with each other. We don't really talk about, or we don't know what the takes are. So Tim's gonna send me his takes, I'm sending him some takes, and we're gonna roll with them throughout the year. And throughout as long as we need to until they get proven right or wrong. We're gonna go with our first take, and this is first take. Like I said, Tim sent me this. I haven't read it before. So, in today's age of social media, athletes who whine the most won't establish a lasting legacy in their sport. Um, I think it's really true, a lot of athletes that do start whining a lot, they haven't been as remembered, they get really discussed, but not because of how good they are, but because of their whining. And you could sort of say one example from recent is yesterday, and I posted a little meme of Manny Machado, um, sort of complaining to the ump about a strikeout call. And, in baseball, we have to remember everything gets really close. It's gonna go either way, but all the comments I've been getting, people commenting on it, everybody's thinking the same. Manny Machado is a whiner, and it's gonna live with his legacy. And that legacy is not gonna last. And if it does last, it's not even for the good. Manny Machado historically has been a great player, has great numbers, but his legacy is going to be remembered for all the whining and all the bad plays he has done. Because since joining the Padres, he's been the number one whiner in San Diego. Um, Before that, he has been a questionable player. And another player we think about is LeBron James. LeBron James, with his Steve Nash take of wanting a month off before the playoffs start, like for me, that's whining because it's like you can't play that's not the way the games have been played. You're trying to adjust it for yourself, for your health, to try to get through the playoff series, and it's like make it an even playing ground. So, like I say, LeBron James is always going to have a big legacy in the NBA. He's gonna be remembered in the sport for a lot of the great, but he's also going to be remembered for a lot of the crying, a lot of the flopping. He's le flop, James at times, what some people call him. So, it's unfortunate that some of these players that do a lot of this whining, complaining, saying the game should change, it's going to hurt their legacy in the long run because, like I say, we're going to remember them, but sometimes not for the good.
For sure. You went exactly where I wanted you to go with that take, John.
I
Starting
could
off with your Machado clip. It's another example of his antics. I
hmm
vividly remember was when he was on Baltimore and he was playing against the A's, I believe, and then he
hmm
like accidentally
Oh
lets
yeah.
go of his bat and it goes flying towards third base. And
hmm
I think Chapman was playing third base at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And he had to like jump out of the way, and it was
Yep.
just like, dude, that was very purposeful. It was ridiculous. He looked like, acting like a child out there.
Yeah.
And it just kind of continues on. Like, yeah, he's an outstanding player. And I think
hmm
that's exactly like, where you have it with this take, John, of like,
hmm
the more you whine, the more it tarnishes the good you
hmm
do. And, like Machado, for example, this year, he's having another great season. He's hitting
Yeah.
for, I think he's hitting like 320 right
Yeah.
now. Still has the power. He's on a good team. But then, just seeing him whine in that close up with the umpire cam, I mean, I love the camera,
Yeah.
but he just looked like, super petty and lame.
hmm
And you nailed it, LeBron. It's totally another one where, yes, he scored over 40,000 points in his career. He's one of the best of all time. But what a lot of people remember is just how much he complains, how much
hmm
he, those times when, he's not hustling down the floor and he'd rather stand there and complain and throw his arms
Yeah.
up in the air and argue with a ref. And just kind of takes away from what the team does. And I feel like he's done that a lot more as he's gotten older,
Yeah.
because obviously he wants a month break now. So
Yeah.
let's take a break from going down and playing defense as well while we're at it. You know, but yeah, that's another one. Another one that kind of came to mind was, right there with the Lakers, Luka Doncic.
hmm
It's his series he had finals 2 years ago when it was, or last year, I should say, Dallas versus Boston.
Yeah.
And, his defense was lacking, kind of complained a ton. I think Brian Windhorst had a pretty harsh take towards him,
Yeah. He did.
but honestly, it was pretty valid at that time. So, and then there's obviously we can all think of a zillion others.
Yeah.
Flopping's obviously been banned in the NBA, not called enough in my opinion.
hmm
Um, but it just happens, and that's just what we remember though, is like we don't remember as much like your great accomplishments and how
Yeah.
great of a hitter you are. We're going to remember you on an umpire cam with, your helmet sticking up, and it just looks ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
it's just a petty type of thing, I guess, part of the game, and
Yeah.
just I don't know, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah, and like you touch on a lot of points, and like the big thing for me, it's like I understand you're so passionate about the sport, you want to win, you want to do well, but do it in an appropriate way, not that complaining, not whining about stuff, crying about it, bringing it back to news conferences, because there's a lot of players that also don't get away with things and deal with it. One person I think that won't have a legacy like that. And like I say, I'm not a Golden State fan, but Steph Curry, I think his legacy is always going to be his gameplay, how well he played. Steph has never complained about a lot of that stuff that I could remember, that really
Hmm.
catches my mind, like LeBron, like Manny Machado, like Luca, the defense that type of thing, So it's like have a legacy like that that's going to be remembered for years for the good. There's not much bad that I think anybody could really say about Steph's game and his legacy moving forward, because he doesn't have those incidents reported, they might be happening behind closed doors, but it's behind closed doors, but when you're having it publicly, and especially with the way social media technology is nowadays, that's going to stay on there forever. The LeBron James, Stephen A, little fiasco confrontation. That's also something that doesn't look good for LeBron, and that's going to stay with you forever because it's living on the internet, it lives in all our head, and we talked about it for months.
Right. And that kind of brings in another topic where LeBron has been very outspoken about things like, you know, politics,
Hmm.
any I guess harsh takes that he's getting from, a guy like Stephen A, for example. He has
Yeah.
these feuds, and then you look back at people like MJ, you look at Tiger Woods, they're notorious for not saying anything at all and
Yeah.
just totally not involving themselves and stuff like
Hmm.
that because, they have other focuses. I'm not saying what LeBron is doing is wrong or anything,
Hmm.
but it just that involvement takes away from what you're doing on the court.
Yeah.
And it stirs away from a lot of that. Steph, that's a great example of somebody who kind of embodies, playing hard, famously this offseason, as the final game came to a close, he's like, don't bother me this summer.
Yeah.
He just wants to mind his own and do his own thing and, probably play a lot of golf,
Hmm.
and travel and stuff like that. But even when he's on the court, he's notoriously not getting free throws, and obviously a lot of that's going to be due in part to the 3-point attempts he takes. He
Yeah.
doesn't drive quite as much, but there's plenty of times he's being hacked and just doesn't get a call. It
Hmm.
happens super often, and probably arguably to a fault. He's not really taking a page out of SGA or
Yeah.
Brunson's playbook of kind of overreacting to a touch
Yeah.
or something. So,
Hmm.
but that's just not his game style. It's not what he's about. So, that's
Yeah.
at this point in his career, he just doesn't need to do that though.
Yeah.
He's truly a goat in what he does. And,
Yeah.
yeah, again, he just doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
he doesn't have to do it, and like you say, he still gets hacked. He does a little frustration, but like I say, he doesn't add on to it. Yeah, be frustrated in the moment, throw your fist up, say a few cuss words, but then move on. And that's what Steph I think does really well as one of those superstars is he'll move on from it. He'll just forget about it, put it on the back burner, and all right, let me see what I got to do to try to win this game and not complain about it, not bring it up later in press conference or whine about it too much. He might address it, here and there, but in a very professional manner, I think, compared to other players. So I think
yep.
Steph is a good one. And one other person, that I think of right now, because I saw a video, I think it was today in the morning, that legacy wise, stat wise, they're going to be remembered in their game, but they're also, it's what's going to hurt them is everything outside of the game, and that's Angel Reese.
Hmm.
Angel Reese, stat wise, one of the best rebounders in the WNBA.
Hmm.
Hit. quickest person to hit, what was it, 500 points, 500 rebounds, and I'm not
Exactly.
gonna really talk about like what kind of rebounds, the me bounds. But she's doing the work, she's getting it, but she does a lot more outside that just doesn't give that legacy a good look. Like I say, the last game, or not today's game, because I think they played today. I don't know if they won, but the last game they played, her biggest like video I saw on TikTok was her walking into the arena with her outfit and then modeling her outfit for the cameras, which I was
Uh,
like, I get it, but I'm like, your team's on a big losing streak, and then you guys lost by like 20 plus points. You
mhm.
barely, I don't even think you scored 10 points. I think she had like 7 points, 8 rebounds, horrible game. And the focus still is, for her modeling all her other extracurricular stuff, which, hey, I know it makes her the money. I know it's great, but like I say, her legacy in the WNBA is always going to be tarnished by a lot of that. Her stats aren't looking as great. So, that's another person I think, that her outside stuff is sort of affecting her legacy in the long term.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We touched on this before where,
Hmm.
she's obviously having a very lucrative career
Yeah.
outside of basketball. And she's good at what she does,
Hmm.
outside of basketball. And you know her podcasts,
Hmm.
her outfits are obviously something that companies are sending her to debut and things like
Hmm.
that. And I think that's great because that there wasn't really a big focus on really any endorsements. I feel like up
Yeah.
to this point in WNBA. Sabrina obviously was a big part in that too, but
Yeah.
until lately, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, everybody coming along, it's kind of made it a lot more pronounced, and I think that's great. But
Hmm.
on the other hand, on the court, if you have a group of friends going viral on betting your first shot miss in winning like
Yeah.
5 out of 6 times and just bringing in racks of money, um, it's not a great look.
Hmm.
And I think that they could do that pretty confidently because a lot of her attempts were just, I think she airballed a couple,
Hmm.
and it was kind of like a miss, get a rebound, put it back
Yeah.
up. You know, a lot of what we've seen. Great accomplishment. She's made it to 500, 500 so quickly. I don't
Yeah.
want to take that away from her. She hustles on the rebounding end,
She does.
but hey, that could be, I'm sure, pretty frustrating to play with. If
Hmm.
you're putting 3 shots, getting 3 boards, missing all of those shots,
Yeah.
and still trying to make it. It's
Yeah.
I'm sure that can be kind of rough. But props to her.
Hmm.
She's out there, she's playing healthy right
Yeah.
now. That's it. But it's kind of like you said, it's a lot of the antics and things that can go along with a career can
Yeah.
tarnish, what you do on the court,
Yeah.
field, diamond, whatever.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and that like we the big topic of this hot take and banter take is social media. Social media, all this stuff that all these athletes are doing, all that we're doing, it's gonna live on social media forever. So it's like we got to roll with it. We got to be confident with it. We're confident with our banter takes. So we're not gonna back down from it. But some of these players, I feel like when they get called out on what they say, they try to defend it, or try to say they didn't say it that way. It was miscommunication, people misheard. So, it's gonna, hurt some people's legacy who do this. Hopefully, it doesn't hurt too many. Hopefully, things change. But yeah, social media, big part of not just sports, but everything nowadays.
I completely agree. Yeah, and that's why I'm standing pat with my Brandon Ayuk take as well. With
Yeah.
he just continues to, I don't know, have antics off the field. It's like, dude, come back healthy, live up to your contract.
Yep.
Let's do it. You wanted the money, you got the money. Let's
Yeah.
let's play, Let's have
Let's
a good
play.
season. But yeah, no, I completely agree. All right. Got my take here. Dr. Squatch
Yeah.
are marketing geniuses for collaborating with Sydney Sweeney. Her soap is currently being sold on eBay for upwards of $300. I feel like I've heard about this. Was this because
So,
I'm a pretty avid, pardon my take listener. Is
yeah.
this where they're putting bath water
So
into the
this is
soap?
advertised as Sydney Sweeney bathwater.
Wow. All right. I've obviously being on social media and everything, we've all heard those takes of like, people selling bathwater,
Hmm.
feet pics, whatever, people, having a certain voice on a phone gets them paid, it
Yeah.
happens. But, for companies to go into this and implement, I don't know, do you know how much they're diluting into this type of
No,
soap?
I
Okay.
haven't. It's just something that just keeps on popping up. Dr. Squatch, the soap brand's a very popular soap brand with men's,
Hmm.
showering all that. And I think it was a few months ago, or maybe about a year ago, they first used Sydney Sweeney for a commercial, and when that commercial happened, their stock blew up. Everybody was buying the soap because it was Sydney Sweeney, and I think everybody knows. Like I said, Vera might get a little mad at me, but we all know what Sydney Sweeney's, persona is and what everybody remembers her for is for the looks, She is one of the gonna might be one of the biggest stars coming up nowadays, and it's not all just for acting, it's also just her looks. So Dr. Squatch, whatever, them promoting her bathwater, it's marketing genius. And her agreeing to it too, she must be making a big old bag of for this because I think I read somewhere when they released it, it sold out in like 10 seconds.
Oh
That's
my
how
gosh.
quick it sold out.
Oh wait. Wow.
Because
Okay.
it's limited amount, So
I'm sure a
there
tub full.
a tub full, Um,
Dang. That's
it's
wild.
crazy, and
So
the rumor is they're gonna have more coming out.
like just other celebrity collabs or what?
Or no, Sydney Sweeney's gonna do more bathwater.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
this first
Yeah.
one was 5,000. So there was only 5,000 out there.
Wow. Jeez. Yeah. No, and I mean anybody who's paying $300 for soap,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
But this is like aftermarket. I'm trying to find to see how much it probably was. I'm thinking it's probably
Retail.
like 50, $60, you know.
Still though, that's
Uh,
that's that's a lot for soap.
so
That's pretty crazy.
this from Dextro TO on X. Scalpers are selling Sydney Sweeney's bathwater soap for a 20,000% profit. The sold out soap bar retailed at $8 and was being listed at up to 1,600. So $8 for
Damn.
this soap.
A reseller's dream.
A reseller's dream.
Yeah.
Hey,
Dang.
stop selling
Are they
cars. Stop selling what's the new one? Those dolls. What are those dolls called? Oh, I'm blanking.
Oh,
Um,
Labubu? Labubu?
Labubus. Stop selling Labubus.
Mm-hmm.
Get your hands on this Sydney Sweeney's soap water, and
Hey,
hey, you'll be making a good profit.
that's where it's at, you
Uh,
know? Yeah. That's crazy. And then it makes me think like, is this going to be the start to a trend of other celebrities that would be willing to do something like this?
hmm
Um, yeah, no, that's pretty crazy. Obviously it's new news to me
Yeah.
that, I don't think any of this has ever been done with, a big company.
No.
Um, Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's such a 2025 thing, I
It
feel
is.
like that that is just you
Good.
tell me that 10 years ago, I probably would have had a crazier reaction, but I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, it, I'm
We're
sure.
we're not surprised. We're not surprised.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
but I'm like really curious. Like, and like I say, I need to look it up more. But I saw it today, and I was like, this is a perfect hot take, for us. Like,
Yeah.
is she really using? Like, are they really using bathwater?
Yeah.
Because all
Right.
she needs to put is her name. But is she really doing this? Like, is there a video of her going in bathwater washing, and then they're making soap bars out of it? Which if that's the
Right.
case, I'm also like, how sanitary is that to use?
That's another thing too, is like, yeah, like what's the sanitization
Yeah.
process? Like, you know, um, it's wild. You know, I'm
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. I'm sure we'll get a documentary on it or
Yeah.
something, behind the scenes. But let's get the how it's made crew like into the
Yeah.
factory and see
Hmm.
like, okay, one droplet here and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because that's wild. Crazy, man. But again, I'm just not surprised. It's
Yeah.
2025. And again, I'm just curious, like, where we go with this. Like, is it like what other celebrities would be down to do something like
Hmm.
this? Um, or is it just going to stop at Sydney Sweeney and
Yeah.
that's that,
Yeah.
But
Like what other brands are gonna try to jump on this, get the big celebrity, even women's brands, getting these like Brad Pitt type of soaps that smell like Brad Pitt.
hmm,
There's gonna be a lot of women that probably want that, while they shower, and it's crazy. I also saw a few videos, like I say, when you get a chance, look it up. And if anybody's seen the videos, on our TikTok live, let us know your thoughts. But like, there's some videos of like men buying it, like sort of hidden from their wives, and then they get found out, and then they go into the doghouse. I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. Like, if I buy
yeah,
this, like,
that's
either Vera
wild.
has to know, or I'm not buying it because I'm gonna get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially if you're paying aftermarket value of
Oh
300
yeah,
bucks
if,
on it,
if, I, if I'm paying three, if I'm
and
paying $300 on soap, I might get
yeah,
divorced, man. For
that's
$8
crazy.
bar of soap, I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Oh man. Speaking of Vera, I think she's in there right now taking your hot take in.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
it's
yeah, she's watching
you
this.
were like,
Oh,
oh man.
I might be a little dead after this.
Right.
Yeah, you guys won't see me next week. You know what
Yeah.
what happened.
He's like, is it getting hot in here? I
Yeah, it's
don't
getting a
know.
little warm here. Just turning up the heat in the house, trying to burn me out.
Right, right. No, but that's crazy. And I guess it only took one company to start doing it and
Hmm.
then, but it has to pass like what FDA
I
regulations or
think
whatever
so.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious, it's just is she putting is it kind of like, you get an autograph like but a stickered autograph, and they just like put it on the card for you,
I
whatever, versus
I
somebody writing
am
it on, one of those
let
things.
me see. There's a I think you get a certificate.
Oh,
Certificate of authenticity. That's
oh
what it
my
shows
gosh.
on eBay.
That's wild.
And it shows, yeah, which one. Oh, and I think she signs a picture too of it. So
Oh, wow.
still though, right now there's this one, $600.
Oh my gosh. Is it like eBay?
eBay. Yeah, everything's on eBay now just
$600.
'cause I think that's all there is.
Does it
Some of
have a
them
lot
are
of
going,
likes?
13.
Oh yeah. That was a pretty
Yeah.
popular product then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one 1,500, 14 likes.
Man.
It's insane.
You say 13.5?
1,500.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Jeez.
for $8 bar soap.
Reseller stream. I
Yeah,
wonder if the
no,
bots got in on that. Are
I'm
they stopping it with the
curious.
bots,
I,
Like,
I, I don't know. I don't even think they were probably prepared to sell out that quick. You
yeah.
know.
Oh, that's well, hey, you know, props to them. That's quite the come up.
Yeah, yeah. So
Pretty good.
that Dr. Sasquatch, Squatch, whatever, big biggest marketers right now. What they did, geniuses. I got to give that to them.
Yeah, I'm sure they're gonna up the base price next time,
Yeah,
if there is a next time.
if there is a next time. Yeah, because imagine they probably like backdoored 2,500 of them and now selling
Oh,
it for, a
sure.
thousand bucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, but yeah, so that was Tim's take here. Tim sent me another take. Wemby's off-season side quest of training to become a Shal Sh
I think it's Shaolin. Shaolin.
Shaolin Temple monk has set the feeling that he will have an MVP caliber season. Yeah, I think if any time you try to learn the ways of a monk, it always ends up well, because they are
Mhm.
very spiritual. They're very zen and really about, their body. And I think especially with Wemby, the injury he went through, I think it was blood clots, it's something very serious that you have to be connected with your body to recover from and recover well. Because we've seen some athletes that have gone through blood clots and haven't returned at their full potential. So, you know,
Mhm.
Wemby doing this, um, he's doing something right. He's prepping for the big run because they have the number two pick. They still have Chris Paul. They have De'Aaron Fox. This is his MVP run, and I think it's a good thing. We saw it, in the movie. Um, we see it in movies. The Hangover 2, when Alan goes, becomes a monk a little bit to sort of
Mhm.
see where the kiddo get lost in Shanghai, in Thailand. Um, it opens up a lot of avenues and just opens up your eyes to the reality of the world. And I think this is going to open up Wemby to be just to be the best superstar he can be.
Agreed. Yeah, I saw footage of him running on the side of the road. He went full shaved head. He's
Hmm.
he's out there training. Um, I don't know what it takes to become a monk, but I'm sure it's very vigorous, very spiritual. And maybe it's a good off-season reset.
Hmm.
Players like Rogers go on ayahuasca trips.
Hmm.
Players like Wemby go and
Yeah.
try to be a monk. You know,
Hmm.
I think it's great. Everybody has their own avenue. And I am curious, is Wemby the tallest monk ever at
He
that
might
point?
be. He might be. Yeah.
Because I mean, he towers over
Yeah.
everybody. He's
Yeah.
he's going to stand out pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think overall, like, I've seen a ton of comments on it. And, I just think like a spiritual reset, after such a, kind of scary,
Mhm.
medical diagnosis that he had at the end of the
Yeah.
season. I think that this is probably really important to him. And yeah, I just honestly, I see an MVP caliber season,
Hmm.
coming through. I completely agree with you, John. Um, and kind of playing up to the hype that we know he has and what he can get back to, and that team's going to get a lot better. Obviously, the West is a very difficult division,
Yeah.
but like you said, you have a good veteran presence there. You now have a coach who is, set in his ways now that Pop has gone,
Yeah.
up to the front office. And, maybe there'll just be, kind of that structure and,
Hmm.
everybody kind of knowing what's up. And I just think that it's going to prep them for a great season. I'm sure we're going to get back to the old Spurs again and,
Yeah.
kind of see them hanging in there and just being a strategic team. But yeah, no, I just thought it was crazy kind of seeing Wemby, do this. In it took me off guard because, it kind of came out of left field and I'm like, oh wow, he's
Yeah.
trying to be a monk and he's just,
Yeah.
kind of going through it. So props to him. I think that's really cool.
Hmm.
And I hope he's getting a lot out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool to see and hear about, because I haven't seen it, but this is the first time hearing about it. And what I think it's just getting you to your roots, getting your foots down, your feet down on the ground, really connecting with the world. Because what we normally see from these superstars during their off season, it's, elaborate vacations going to like Fiji, renting out a whole resort, jet skiing, the jet skiing trio or group, it's
Banana
these
boat
things, yeah, banana
with
boat, the
LeBron back in
banana
the day.
boat crew, but Wemby's doing something for his health and something a little different, reaching like deep, spiritual, religious roots, whatever he sees it as. And anytime you see players sort of do that, and you could sort of call Aaron Rodgers ayahuasca trips that. I think that's a little bit different, but these people that maybe like go back to their home countries, I saw this one NFL player. I can't remember, but he went back to his home country of Tonga for a month and he's living out there with his family. So connecting with roots like that, just remembering where you come from, the hardships you went through and how you build off of that to be a superstar, it really helps you. I truly think it really helps a lot of these athletes become some of the best players in the world. So I think this is a good start for Wemby, and he's still young, so it'll be good. And to your question, he might be the tallest, but the guy from Rush Hour 2, I think it was.
Oh,
That guy, I don't know if he's a full monk, but that guy might be a little taller than Wemby.
that's a good call. Yeah, because that was kind of like a dojo, right?
A dojo,
Karate
yeah.
dojo.
Yeah.
But tallest, I mean, you can have tallest monk and then you can have tallest black belt,
Yeah.
you know. That guy was taking Chris Tucker out,
Yep, and Jackie
he had some
Chan.
skill. And Jackie,
Uh,
great film.
uh,
Good reference there, John. I like that. Yeah, yeah, just two beasts. Didn't that guy he played in the NBA for a second, or
I
at
think he
least
did. I,
overseas?
I I think he played overseas. I don't think he made it to the NBA, but I think he played overseas. So,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
You just, Yao Ming type of height,
yeah,
is
yeah.
crazy. And I think they kind of played around the same time, which was crazy to
Hmm.
see. So, but yeah, no, overall, props to Wemby.
Yes,
Honestly, I think MVP season incoming. Third year already, right? So,
yeah,
yeah, he's well on his way, man.
yeah.
Excited to
No,
see it.
yeah, he's well on his way, and I didn't have another take for you, but something I saw earlier, and I was like, let me just bring it up as a take in a sort of a discussion as a hot take for us.
Ooh.
Aaron Rodgers getting married a couple months ago. Do you think
Mm.
this is going to be a good thing for him going into the season now that he's a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Yeah, I don't know. He's so unpredictable. I think it's probably good.
Hmm.
He maybe he was just looking for companionship,
Yeah.
overall, even though he's a guy that wants to go into a dark room and go on ayahuasca trips
Yeah.
at times. Um, maybe that's his reset was
Hmm.
getting secretly married. That it was kind of a shocker to see. And of course he kind of went on his way saying like, yes, that's a wedding ring and blah blah blah, and
Yes.
just kind of like, oh, don't act surprised. Um, but yeah, maybe that was his reset, and maybe that's gonna bring stability to his off the field life.
Hmm.
And not saying that he's unstable or anything, but I think that can just help on
Yeah.
the field and kind of give an extra push in a way.
Hmm.
Steelers certainly need it. He's going to be their fourth starting quarterback in four
Yes.
years, starting week one. So, I mean, that's crazy in it of itself. But yeah, no, overall, I'd say it can't hurt any. I think if anything, it would help, and I think bring, like I said, the kind of like a stable,
Hmm.
I don't know, kind of feel to him. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same because I'm trying to remember all the times he was in like somewhat of a stable relationship. So with like
Danica?
Danica Patrick, Sydney, I want to it's not Sydney. But the actress, like I feel like he had good
Olivia
seasons those
Munn?
years. Olivia Munn was old, a lot longer, I think, before Danica.
Hmm.
Um, but I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But like every time he was in a stable relationship, I think he had great seasons. And like you
Hmm.
said, maybe he's just been trying to find love. He was trying to find it with these ayahuasca trips, getting tripped out to sort of connect them to his one person. And hey, this could be a good sign for the Steelers that he's more focused on marriage, that family life instead of his extracurricular activities. So I think it could be a good thing. I read, or I didn't read, I heard that he sort of told the team he's all in for this year. So it it might be a good thing for the Steelers. We'll see. I'm still very hesitant just because Aaron Rodgers hasn't played the Aaron Rodgers way for quite a few years.
For sure. Do you think Mike Tomlin was just looking for some extra crazy in there? Because there's always a couple, kind of crazy personalities with the Steelers organization every year. He's like, oh, DK's not
Yeah.
enough. It's not enough. We need
Eh,
one more. to pair with
He
him.
he might have, because yeah, that organization, you have to be a little crazy. You have to have this tough attitude.
Yeah.
They got rid of Pickens, so the
Yep.
warhead was sort of dethroned, but now you're bringing Aaron Rodgers, so it might not be a full warhead, but still, some hotheads around there,
Mhm.
some high egos that bring some hecticness to the locker room, and that's what Mike Tomlin might like. But I've heard a lot of things like Mike Tomlin. This could be a make it or break it year for him if he doesn't perform well with this team.
Yeah. I could see that. It's
Hmm.
from what I saw, TJ Watt hasn't reported, right?
Yeah, I don't think he has.
I think contract stuff, if I'm
Hmm.
not mistaken.
Yeah.
Because they kind of paired him with Hutchinson or not Hutchinson, right? Yeah, Hutchinson.
No, Hendrickson or
Hendrickson, my bad.
yeah,
Hendrickson.
yeah,
Yeah, both not reporting, obviously.
yeah,
And I think that they paired him together with contract issues. Obviously,
yeah.
that's a big name. TJ Watt, I think he's heading into his age 31 season.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's probably looking for that final contract. And it's like, dude, just pay the man. Like, he's still one of the best defenders, if
Yeah,
not the best defender in the league. Like,
yeah,
pay him. Same
yeah,
thing with Hendrickson. They just got to do it. They still haven't,
yeah.
Bengals still haven't signed that rookie. It's
No,
just, it's so bad. Uh,
that's just not good for them.
but yeah, going back to it, I think Fidel over this past weekend said, just through gaming, he had mentioned that he thinks that this will be Tomlin's first under 500 season of his
Mm-hmm.
career. But honestly, I see something like 10-7, 9-8
Hmm.
incoming because I think the Browns are just too bad.
Yeah.
It's going to be a couple free wins there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it could be. I think they still have a winning record. And like I said, I think a lot of it's going to depend on Aaron Rodgers, how he performs. Because like I say, after that, Mason Rudolph, I don't think he could win games. So they're going to depend a lot on Rodgers and how he plays. So let's
yeah,
see, whenever I don't hate Aaron Rodgers, but when he plays well, it's good for football, so it'll make
yeah,
our division, I don't want to see him play well because I'm a Ravens fan, so I want four easy wins for our team, but if he plays well, we just got to compete a little bit better.
for sure. Yeah, no, and they have a pretty I think they have a lot of primetime games, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken, as well.
Yeah.
So the league knew.
Yeah.
They knew. Oh yes, he's going to go Steelers. Give him prime time. But I agree. Rodgers is one of those players. Much like Brady was. Not comparing the two. Brady's obviously way better, but he's just one of those names that
Hmm.
you don't want to see leave the league. No matter how old they are. You just kind of
Yeah.
want to have them linger around a little bit longer, just to kind of get as much as possible out of them. So,
Yeah.
um, and then we'll get a reset and we'll get other players that are kind of like that, probably like Mahomes, because it's just good drama.
Yeah, no, it is. It is good drama. So yeah, that was just something that came up. Um, but we'll move on. We'll go into some NBA playoff updates. So anybody that likes NBA, stick around. But NBA playoff series tied 1-1, Indiana OKC. Um, what do you think of the series so far, Tim? I would say it's been a good one so far.
It's been fantastic. Yeah, it's been a really good series so far. I think much of what we expected. Um, Halliburton theatrics, their classic,
Mhm.
buzzer beater win, game
Yeah.
one. Then, OKC just kind of turned it around and, just kind
Hmm.
of blew them out the second game. Now we're going to head into Indiana. I think the game three is tomorrow, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Had a few days in between. Overall, I think it's been great. I think it's a well thought series. I'm happy it's 1-1. I want this to go 7 games.
Hmm.
I think we both predicted 7 games out of
Yeah.
this, but it's Indiana taking one in OKC. That's tough. Indiana's a tough place to play.
Hmm.
So I just feel like this is going to go back 2-2
Yeah.
as it goes back to OKC. So yeah, great series so far. It's there's a lot of big names, a lot of up and coming stars in this. Players that
Hmm.
have been good for a while are finally being shown, the
Yeah.
light. Um, but yeah, no, I've loved it so far. I think it's a great series. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. Great series, great competitive series. Halliburton again, gonna give him his flowers. Came up again, clutch game one. Game two. was a non-factor. I think it was fourth quarter when he started shooting. So
Mhm.
I think one of the big things for him, he needs to get started earlier. He can't be waiting till the fourth, expecting his team to keep him in. One good take, I don't know who said it, but someone said, Halliburton's either prime Chris Paul or Michael Carter Williams, where it's just trash,
Oh,
you
oh,
know,
dude. Yeah.
which is bad.
Yeah, it's really bad.
And it's very accurate because, game one, I think I told you when we talked about it a little bit, he wasn't playing well the whole half. Like he played well the fourth quarter and he came up with the clutch shot. After that, I think he barely got like 8 assists. And he's supposed to be known for assists. He's supposed to be known for, the future John Stockton, dishing it out. Game two, same thing. Barely did anything until the fourth quarter started scoring. So if he can't be showing up and, if this is what his games are going to be, and if Indiana wins, he's not winning MVP. I'll give it to Pascal, I think, most likely. He's the
Mhm.
one that's sort of keeping this team in it alive, doing a lot of that work. And, Halliburton's just getting the recognition from his one big shot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's could have been all playoffs. But yeah, we kind of touched on this last week where, Halliburton's that guy that'll give you 4 points and he just needs to step up in assists,
Hmm.
or, he'll put up 40 and
Hmm.
just be outrageous. But, it's one of those things where he needs, I don't know if the right word is decide early on, like,
Hmm.
hey, tonight's not my night. It's
Yeah.
time to pass and let, Nemhard or somebody else,
Yeah.
Siakam, just get theirs and
Hmm.
light it up in a different way. And he can be valuable that way because they honestly, if Halliburton's having an off night, OKC's going to just roll him like they did
Hmm.
in game two.
Yeah.
There's going to be no keeping up with that. There's just way
Yeah.
too many threats. SGA, he's a consistent 30 plus a
Yeah.
game, between the amount of free throws he gets, had another untouched foul
Oh yeah.
this past game. That
Yeah.
was some bullshit. You know, yeah,
Yes.
classic SGA though. But quite frankly, I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game at this point, I guess. They're still calling it. But yeah, no, he needs to decide early on. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
I ain't got it today, folks. Let's
Hmm.
let's do it a different way. And he's very capable. The guy can get 15 assists a
Yeah,
game, I feel
he
like.
can.
So, kind of like you said, Chris Paul, that's what he's known for,
Hmm.
dishing it out. So yeah, that's just what he needs to do. Indiana's a
Hmm.
great team. They're super formidable and they can make it happen.
Yeah. 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 That's what he needs to do. We'll see if he could get it done. I think he's hearing all this chatter. I think he will step it up a bit. But let's see if he can produce. Like I said, they're in Indiana. Indiana needs to for sure win one. I think they need to aim for two because if this goes seven, OKC has the home court advantage, and
Mhm.
if you lose one, it's already going to be hard, in Indiana. If you lose two to OKC in Indiana, going back to OKC for that game five, OKC is going to be electric if they're up
Oh yeah.
3-1. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens tomorrow. It's going to be a decisive game. Good game though.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to watch it again. One thing about the game, though, altogether, got a lot of chatter
Hmm.
throughout social media. The lack of just finals presence. Like if you were watching game one, you're like,
Hmm.
is this a game in, early, like late October, like starting the season? Or is this like the NBA finals? Because we're used to big trophies on the court, those
Hmm.
emblems, things like that. There's just nothing. And it
Hmm.
was odd because if you look back at that game, like for example, we're obviously gonna look back for years to come at Halliburton's game one winner,
Yeah.
especially if they win this series. And it kind of referenced that, but it's like there's not going to be like any logos unless they put an afterthought in. And
No.
I thought that was pretty lame. I mean, did you have any thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I thought it was lame. I miss seeing the big championship in center court.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw what they did game two with the small logos on the
Yeah.
side, and they weren't even
Yep.
actual logos. It was all green screened on it. I don't know if you saw that too.
It looked like it too.
No,
It
they
looked just
were.
super
There's a
fuzzy and
video
lousy.
there's a video that shows like actual game from someone there that doesn't show the logo. So it's like and who knows if this is sort of what we talked about where it's not big market teams, so why put big market money into the games?
Hmm.
Like, there's a lot of people excited for the game. We're excited for the game, and I think the big reason we're excited for the game is because we like the sport. We love basketball. We love watching this type of stuff. But for other people, they're small market teams. Indiana, who really, honestly, who really cares for Indiana other than people from Indiana? And OKC, same thing. Who cares for OKC other than people from OKC?
Hmm.
Maybe the old Seattle fans, from the expansion, as it being an expansion team, stuff like that. But if it was the Knicks, I think they would have put all the money out there because they would be playing in Madison Square Garden. It's this big market team where everybody wants to see the Knicks win because they haven't won in so many years. So it could be just NBA being like, well, we don't really care. Let's just try to get as much money off of this and let's call it.
Yeah, and we've kind of ragged on like the in-season tournament. And like, look what they do with the courts for that,
Yeah.
But God forbid, let's not put a trophy up,
Mhm.
for the NBA freaking finals.
Yeah.
It's just you're right. Maybe the markets are playing a factor into this because we're not getting that New York City team in
Mhm.
here, LA or
Mhm.
SF, you
Texas
name
type,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's Boston. It's way different than last year's, and
Hmm.
you can kind of figure out like who to point the finger at. You know, it- then a social media kind of one after good, his name's slipping my mind. Breen, Mike Breen for not
Mm.
doing the bang. It
Yeah.
was Breen, right?
I think so,
Who
yeah.
does that? Yeah, and he didn't do the bang, but then he gives one early on to Halliburton. It's like, dude, you can't
Mhm.
do that. Like that much
Yeah.
emphasis for something early on is kind of lame. Like
Yeah.
it seems like an apologetic bang. I don't know. Just been kind of like oddball so far,
Hmm.
on that front, but the gameplay's been great. So,
Yeah.
no complaints there.
Yeah. For those that are basketball fans that like basketball, like to watch NBA and competitive basketball, it's a great series. But like I say, for
Yeah,
for those unknowns that just like to watch for the spectacle, these two teams aren't it, I think. So,
right.
but
Yeah,
we'll see.
it's true. One other thought came to mind, John,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that this is probably a terrible idea in some sort of the imagination, but I think it would be kind of cool is the NBA because I don't know, I just feel like the NBA outside of the playoffs needs to come up with something like just a
Mhm.
little bit better. Like the All-Star game's garbage,
Mhm.
in-season tournament people have already lost interest in. There just needs to be something different. We kind of discussed like a Four Nations thing, but if you want
Yeah.
to do like one event every year and you want to take another page out of hockey's handbook, a thought came to mind of like a stadium game
Mhm.
for NBA where it's outdoor, obviously out in the elements.
Yeah.
You kind of have to plan this correctly and not be in Chicago, play at
Mhm.
Soldier Field in the middle of December. Like, that's probably not a great idea.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like, down in Florida, Texas, Texas gets cold, but
Mhm.
Arizona, California, even play at the Coliseum. I don't know. I just think that the Rose Bowl, I think that
Mhm.
would be kind of cool just to have like one stadium event a year. Hockey does it. It gets a
Mhm.
really good, amount of people that go and attend it.
Yeah.
And, just the theatrics behind it could be pretty cool. But
Yeah.
again, you're out in the elements. That's probably not great for dribbling on a court.
Mhm.
Something, humidity, God knows,
Yeah.
players will think of something. But I don't know. Just the thought that crossed my mind. Thought it could be kind of cool.
It'd be cool actually. The way I'm thinking of it is like making it a NBA street like tournament. The
Yeah.
teams playing, right on the blacktop surface. Um, yeah, out in the elements, double rim.
Hmm.
And also like customized jerseys, like a Laker if it's the Lakers playing like a street LA jersey,
That'd be sick.
street, Warrior jersey, whatever teams are in it. That'd be pretty cool. Something different.
Imagine
Even
like Clippers, Lakers at Dodger Stadium.
yeah, like I said, even for as an all-star, type of game,
Yeah.
make it
There
street
you go.
wherever the city is, make it
Hmm.
outside, just do something different.
Yeah.
Could be good.
We all like jersey alternates these
Yeah,
days.
we do.
You could do like you said, NBA Street.
Yeah,
That's a
NBA
game they need to
streets.
bring back too.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah. One of the last questions I had for you with the playoffs, with the finals, there's 2 days of break, a 2 day break in between
Mhm.
the games compared to all the other rounds where it was a 1 game break. You think it's good? You think it's bad? What are your thoughts on it?
Mm, I think it just kind of sucks at the moment because there's nothing else on.
Yeah.
Hockey's kind of timing it the same exact pace as
Yeah.
the NBA. I think isn't game four of NHL
Tomorrow?
Stanley Cup tomorrow as
I
well.
think they're both tomorrow. Yeah.
They can't even stagger them. It's like give us one today and another one the next day.
Yeah.
Uh, so in that way, it kind of stinks. But as far as rest and travel time, I think it makes sense. Obviously,
Hmm.
the travel between OKC and Indiana isn't like how it was for the Warriors versus Boston, going cross country. That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I think the 2 days is probably necessary, but honestly, they just need to find a better way to stagger these
Hmm.
these finals games because the Stanley Cup is a phenomenal
Yeah.
series as well. So, um, yeah, I understand it, but yeah, just do it a little bit better way. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the same. It's like the 2 days in between. We have baseball, but baseball still, it's mostly just following your team. You aren't watching
Hmm.
every game. It's not it's still competitive, but it's not playoff competitive, which is a whole different aspect, a whole different environment. So, yeah, and hockey, basketball, they're the same day, so it's you got to watch both of them at the same time. So I wish they did that a little better. 1 day
Hmm.
hockey, 1 day basketball, and work that out. Uh, NHL, NBA need to get together and not let this happen again in the future, just because it just doesn't work out well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just something I noticed, giving the teams a little bit of an extra break. I get it because we want the best basketball. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it makes sense. I wish they would have done that for my Warriors. I think we had a 1 day rest going into the T-Wolf series.
yeah,
Not saying it probably would have helped Steph out a bit.
yeah.
Soft tissue injuries can happen.
Hmm.
I get it for the finals. Make it last a little longer. Because after this, John, sports is going to be, we're
We
going to think
got,
of some other topics here. I mean,
yeah, we
we
got,
always have other topics, which is
yeah.
great, and we love to blab about everything. But yeah, sports,
Mhm.
after that, it's like let's talk fantasy football.
Fantasy football is prepping for that. But yeah, no, yeah, that was just one of the things I was like, let me ask him what he thinks. But one of the other sports, moving along that we are watching, the one sport we can watch once NBA, NHL playoffs are done and the finals are done, baseball. And I think just update Tim, for you, what do you think of your team so far? And I'll share my team as well, but start with you.
We're doing better now. And get some freebies here against Colorado. Don't jinx myself, but we won kind of a come from behind game today. We are hot on your guys' tail, the
Hmm.
Dodgers, second in the division. We're honestly way outperforming my expectations I had for this ball club. Um, I think a lot of this is due in part of having Buster Posey in there. That
Yeah.
dude's just a straight winner, and he's been, heaven sent for us as a player and now in the front office, and he's been absolutely incredible. Our big
Yeah.
issue is we have zero bats. And that's been
Hmm.
super rough, especially for guys like Logan Webb. We talked about it last week. We have great pitching, and then the
Hmm.
hitting is where we struggle. And we have some good talent in the minors that we can hopefully eventually call up here. Bryce Eldridge is certainly one of them. His first game, in AAA, he hit a grand slam, and
Hmm.
I think he's an absolute stud. And he plays a position that we desperately need help at, which is
Yeah.
first base. We got rid of Lamont Wade. He's a name I mentioned last week that was underperforming, and we DFA'd him this past week. And we brought in, I believe, an outfielder in
Hmm.
replacement of him. But honestly, there's Anthony Rizzo, I think, is still a name out there. He can have some pop. SF is a hard place to hit a home run. That's why I think Barry Bonds needs to be in the Hall of Fame because
Yeah.
he still did what he did there. But yeah, no, overall, I'm super impressed with this ball club.
Hmm.
Adamas needs to step up a little bit. He's been lackluster. But again, we're finding ways to win. We've been pretty clutch. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm just happy that we're so,
Yeah.
I guess, close in contention with you guys.
Yeah, yeah, one game behind, I'll say for me, it's a surprise to see San Francisco's this great. I didn't think they were going to be keeping up with us in the Padres, but you
Mhm.
guys are above the Padres, right on our tail. And like I say, Arizona too. It's another hot team, in our division. So yeah, no, great team. I think we've talked about it with you guys. You guys do need that bat help, so finding those bats, finding those hits. Because you guys are losing a lot of close games, and you guys have a great pitching rotation. And when you don't
Mhm.
have that bat support and there's striking out 10, 10 plus players a game, like you need that support. So,
Oh yeah.
um, we'll see if you guys could find it. But yeah, for my Dodgers, a bad game today, 11-1 loss to the damn
Ooh.
Padres. But not surprised because we talk about it. Padres are a good team. They have great hitters. They have, Machado's having a great year. But I'm always gonna hate on the Padres because they think they're better. But I think I'm happy where we're at. Still atop of the division. Still one of the top teams with our pitching woes because our pitching has been depleted.
Mhm.
Yamamoto is our most consistent starting pitcher. After that, we don't really have a solid player. Dustin May coming back has his good games, has his bad games. Um, Gonsolin sometimes, plays well. Uh,
I think Gonsolin just
it's
went back to the IR, right?
yeah, I think he just went back.
Brutal.
Blake Snell, we signed him this year, hasn't really
Sucker.
played. Like,
So happy we got rid
get
of
out of
him.
here. Get out of here, Tim.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Idiot. Just
And then
kidding.
Clayton Kershaw, not the same Clayton Kershaw we had, so
No.
but we do have a good relief pitchers, Tanner Scott's been playing well. Um so I think that's all we really have to address. Our battings, our bats are pretty on top of it. Otani always still big hitter. Pajas, he's been stepping it up. Mookie Betts, Freeman, Hernandez, big, reliable guys. So like I said, we have the bats. When we were playing the Dodgers today, I felt we were gonna lose because we were facing the best pitcher for the Padres, Dylan Cease. He's one of
Mhm.
the top pitchers, so I knew we were going to struggle when we didn't have the greatest pitching. Um, but I'm excited to see the our division is going to go down to the wire. A team that's in any other, in any other division, they'd make the playoffs easily. They're going to be a wild card team and might not even make it to the playoffs, which is going to be crazy.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Yeah, injuries are obviously doing you guys no favors.
Mhm.
With how much pitching is, depleted with your guys' team, is there any signs of Shohei possibly coming back? Because I've seen him warm up and his
Yeah.
stuff looks nasty as ever.
I I'm hearing a no,
Okay.
and I would give him a shot, see how he does in the regular season, but not play him too much. Don't play him too many games. Still save his arm, save that bat. Um, but I think when it comes down to the playoffs, if Shohei's healthy enough, he has the juice in those pitches. I think we have to play him. I think
Mhm.
we need to throw him in if we can't get our pitching up. Like I say, if Snell can't come back, if our trade for Paul Skeens doesn't go through, we're ready to arbitrate so much money to just get him to LA. Like if that doesn't happen, like we might have to look at having Otani pitch for us, even though I think it's not ideal.
Right. Yeah, his bat is so valuable. Obviously, he's had elbow injuries in the past that have required Tommy John, and he
Hmm.
was still able to finish out the season as a
Yeah.
hitter. It'd be effective that way. But, I just watching like that recent clip of him, I
Yeah.
think it was when they were in New York or
Yeah.
something.
It was
And
in the Mets where he was doing
yeah, his stuff looked
yeah,
great.
practice.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's no surprise, but yeah, no, he looks phenomenal.
Hmm.
Um, But that's certainly probably more. There's probably a lot more chatter about that within the
Hmm.
Dodgers organization lately. But obviously you have to be careful with it, and then you want
Hmm.
to save him for important times, as you guys head towards playoff baseball. But that's obviously been a big factor. Glass now is another name, right?
Hmm.
He's been injured. I think when he was healthy, he was getting
Yeah.
shelled, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. I don't think he was playing very well. He's
Yeah.
had quite the downturn. Um, yeah, no, you guys are dealing with. I think Blake Trennan's another one that
Hmm.
is injured for you guys. It's
Yeah.
just name a pitcher and he's probably injured with you guys right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you mentioned, our pitching in the IR, IL, we're pretty much some of these major league teams, how much we're paying them, just
Mhm.
to be injured. So it's the unfortunate team for the Dodgers, but like I say, still happy we're staying in it, still at the top of the division because that's what we need to do. We just need to stay up there so we could hopefully get a first round bye, rest some of these pitchers, not have to go into the wild card and put a lot more pressure on the team and hopefully repeat, first team in a while. But it's gonna be baseball this year. There's a lot of great teams, man. The standings, like I say, New York, top team.
Mhm.
Yeah, Detroit Tigers. I think that's a surprise for me. I didn't really expect Detroit to be probably the best team right now in baseball.
Yeah,
Um,
it's all those bad
Mets,
years
yeah.
stacking up. Finally got good players.
They finally got good players. The Mets, Chicago Cubs are up there, so there's a
Cubbies
lot
are
of great
great
teams. Like I say, it's not going to be easy for any team to make it out of their league, to the World Series.
for sure. Yeah, no, and speaking of Cubbies, my dad's a lifelong Cubs fan, so I talk to him about the Cubs pretty often. And we're talking Pete Crow Armstrong. Dude's an absolute stud, and
Dude, he
he's
is.
finally playing where, they had hoped and dreamed he would, of what he would become.
Hmm.
And, a lot of people have him as like an NL MVP,
Yeah.
candidate for sure. If not, a winner right now, in
Hmm.
comparison to a guy like Shohei, which is saying a ton. But, he does it, on the base path with steals. He
Hmm.
has power this year. Like he's playing super well, but that Cubs team altogether has just top to bottom, great hitters.
Yeah.
Their pitching is good too. I think their bullpen is where they struggle the most. I don't know if that's come along a little bit better, but it just
Hmm.
seems like they can always put up big numbers, in the scorecard. But Cubbies are good. Soto's
Yeah.
finally playing where he is being paid. I guess, at least he's getting up to that pace now.
Yeah.
Yankees look, good again. I think their pitching is iffy though.
Yeah.
Rodon just got shelled, against the
He did.
Red Sox over the weekend.
He did.
He's sold on my parlay. Uh,
Oh yeah.
Jerk.
No, save
Happy
for
the
me.
Giants didn't resign him.
Save for me. I'm like, this
Yeah.
guy, you're supposed to get me that. And yeah.
Yep, yep, blew it. But Judge, that dude is could go triple crown this year, and
Hmm.
he's just unbelievable. I think he hit a possible record at Kansas City Stadium,
Oh,
a
did he?
467-foot home
Okay.
run today. Just an absolute tank. Um, he's just downright incredible.
Yeah.
With Judge, but yeah, overall, and then I know that our next little topic in this category, John, is rookies, and I
Hmm.
definitely wanted to touch on that because I'm just like in a free whatever fantasy football or fantasy baseball league,
Okay.
and I've just been quick to grab rookies because I feel like whenever they debut, oftentimes they just come out, wreaking havoc and playing really well. So I kind of
Yeah.
just want to jump on that. Jack Caglione
Hmm.
is
Caglioni.
one. He I think had a 4-hit game the other day. Like
Hmm.
he's already raking pretty well. He has tremendous power. I don't think he might have hit his home run. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
But another name, Roman Anthony just got called up yesterday. Had a
Yeah.
bad air yesterday for the Red Sox, but today had a 2 RBI double. He's a guy, I think he just hit a 500-foot home run in AAA, and then they're like, oh, okay, it's time. Let's call him
Yeah.
up. I think it was literally the day after they called him up.
Yeah.
Those are two great stud rookies, right off the bat. I
Hmm.
think the Brewers have a pitcher coming up, going to throw tomorrow. He's
Yeah.
23. I think that there's a lot of promise in him as well. But it's the year of the rookies. We're seeing a
It
lot of
is.
them, and I'm really happy that teams aren't, twiddling their fingers with these players and they're letting them come up and just learn and
Hmm.
jump right into it. I think that's better.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's really good. Roman Anthony, like I say, the one reason that one sort of popped up for me in my alerts is because of Era and the family. They're Red
Uh-huh.
Sox fans, so I support the Red Sox when my team's not in it. When we're facing each other, we're sort of a split household.
Yep.
But I saw Roman Anthony coming up. Yeah, I did see his error that he had, but yeah, he's made it up, and this could be that stud. Boston's always a middle of the pack team. I don't think they've ever been a bad team. They just struggle. They're struggling with injury right now, and I think Roman Anthony. I don't think they do much this year, but to start building around him for next year, it's gonna be good. So I've had that one in mind. Jack Calgione, that guy too. That guy looks like he's gonna be a beast hitting home runs once he develops his
He looks like
swing, and
Judge.
he
Dude, he's
does.
huge.
Just younger
Yeah.
too, 10 years
Yep.
younger.
Yep.
So if this guy could get that Judge power and just that, just that baseball IQ, this guy is going to be a danger. And in KC, it's funny because you always see KC come up for a few years. They're a team that makes the
Hmm.
playoff. They make the, World Series run, and then they disappear for a few years. They develop players, so him, Bobby Witt Jr., they got a solid squad. So be on the
Yeah.
lookout for Kansas City Royals. That'll be a
Yeah.
good team.
Michael Franco,
Yeah.
their infielder is really good. Their pitching, uh, Reagan's,
Mhm.
he's a good pitcher. He just has had a bad year. He's dealt with some
Yeah.
injuries this year. Um, you still have a guy like Salvador Perez there, just that great veteran
Yeah.
presence,
Veteran presence. Yeah.
very well, probably on his way to he will be a Hall of Famer. He's a
Yeah.
World Series MVP. The dude's a complete stud. Um, Great team. They're at least being consistent, with their, newcomers over the last couple seasons, unlike a team like Baltimore, who's just
Yeah.
fallen off planet Earth
Dude.
altogether.
That's crazy.
I don't know what the heck is going on there. But yeah, they're struggling
Hmm.
mightily. And another name, like I mentioned before, Bryce Eldridge.
Hmm.
He's our rookie. He would be a rookie if he's called up, but he's in AAA right now. He just got
Yeah.
called up to AAA. Had some spring training time. Has a huge amount of power, and that's why
Yeah.
I just wish we would call him up now because we need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another name to keep an eye out for. So
Yeah.
big names, big rookies,
Yeah.
and I think that's what keeps baseball enticing right now. I think it's
It
great.
it does. And the other name, and the only reason I bring up this name, I've watched some of his games. Don't like I say, I don't watch much baseball. I think you're more the baseball guru out of the two of us. But I do a lot of the underdog parlay picks. I
Great way to learn.
I look at stats.
Yep.
Um, Jacob Wilson from the Athletics. This kid is a
Oh,
stud.
yeah, local kid.
He's just hitting it. He's getting on base, and he's helping the A's stay somewhat relevant with them not having a stadium, not having a home. And that team, Oakland A's. I look at the squad. I like them. I'm really
Yeah.
am rooting them on. I hope they do well and hope they can make a change. And I'll be excited when they go to Las Vegas if that's still where they go.
Yeah, no, evidently they've broken ground,
Yeah.
supposedly. I think they're just moving a lot of dirt around from what I've seen. Um,
Yeah.
they're just playing with the bulldozers over there in
Yeah.
Vegas. But yeah, there's a lot of good talent on that athletics team.
Hmm.
You just gotta I grew up with the A's. They were closer to
Yeah.
where I grew up, and I went to more of their games compared to the Giants. And every single star we had, we'd always trade them. And
Yeah.
that's what made me
Yeah.
fall out of being a fan
Yeah.
with the A's
Yeah. No,
because they just let go of everybody. My final straw was Carlos Gonzalez. I think I've mentioned that on this show.
yeah.
When we traded him, I'm like, I'm done. That's it because he turned out to be a great ball player. I knew he was going to be, and we blew it. He played 1 year with us, and oh yeah, see ya. Um, but yeah, maybe Vegas is going to be different.
Hmm.
It's still a shitty owner. Excuse my French. But he's just really bad. But Jacob Wilson, dude, I think he's hitting around what 340 right
Yeah.
now.
He's in the mid threes. or even
Yeah.
maybe closer to the high threes now. Because yeah, he's always getting on base every game.
Yep.
Consistent hitter. He'll have one bad game, but then he'll come with like six straight games with a hit. He hits a lot of doubles, so he's a good player. For those
Yeah.
fantasy props for me, because that's where I why I watch a lot of baseball now and look at a lot of stats. But like I say, I'm liking that team. I'm liking the team overall. Lawrence Butler,
Mhm.
they got some squad.
How about their center fielder with those two robberies that he had
Yeah.
of home run robs? Dude, good Lord. Like he's
Yeah.
climbing the fence and like half of his body over the fence
Yeah.
and just pulling it back in. Their
Yeah.
announcer butchers it though. She it's just the calls from her. It's very entertaining.
Yeah.
But probably not in the best of ways.
Yeah.
I just feel like a lack of emphasis for what a great play it is.
Hmm.
But tremendous plays, great fielder.
Yeah.
Obviously saved 2 runs off the board for them. They
Hmm.
went into a pretty bad rut though. They started
Yeah.
off pretty hot, and then I think that they went like 2-23
Yeah. Yeah. They
lately.
started doing bad. It looked like they could have been a great surprise team, but yeah, they ended up going on a bad streak.
They're winning too much. They don't want to win yet
Yeah. No.
because rack up your picks as you head into Vegas.
Yeah.
It's the better way to do it. But yeah, that's another great name to put out there, John. He's an exciting player. In
Hmm.
that team, a lot of good young talent. Just hope they keep it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always like their jerseys. My favorite color is green. I've always liked the Oakland A's
Oh, it's
jersey.
a
Uh,
classic.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a classic one. So that's a good one. And then sort of last with baseball, sort of we talked about it, the little post I had with Manny Machado. Like I said, it's gonna bite me when I probably go back on TikTok on the comments of my last video. But that ump cam is the first time I really see the ump cam with that type of angle, seeing a player argue. I want more of it. I don't know how you feel about it, Tim. Do you want more of it or
absolutely. It's kind of like those ringside cameras, in
yeah,
boxing matches. It's phenomenal. Yeah, honestly, give me an option to watch the whole game with that,
with the ump
and just
cam?
kind of like zoning in and seeing, pitches and the speed of the game up
Yeah.
close like that. And then you get a guy like Manny Machado coming up and, you just see him just dump's face. I think that's hilarious. It's great content.
Yeah.
And yeah, keep it up. I think it's awesome. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah,
great.
no, I like that a lot. I think it's good angles. Like I say, you sort of see the ball come in, sort of decide for yourself if it's a ball to strike. Because I know that's always it's probably one of the harder jobs to do, in sports as an umpire. Um, but yeah, I think it's great. The Manny Machado thing, like I say, I bag on it, and it's not. I didn't really care that we beat them. I knew we were gonna win. I know we're gonna lose a few to them, but it was just hilarious that it had to be Manny Machado. That you got that perfect angle of that ump cam of him complaining and whining, because that's what he does a lot.
I will say those meme pictures that people are commenting on your post, John,
Oh yeah.
are cracking me up. Like
Yeah,
just
so, some of them I'm just like, how? I thought I was creative. You guys are insanely creative, and
yeah,
just
it's it's crazy. And
uh,
I even did like Manny Machado memes through a Google image search today.
yeah,
Some of them are just outrageous.
yeah,
in super funny, good content,
yeah,
which is, this umpire cam altogether. I think it's great content.
yeah. No, it is. So yeah, hopefully we see more of the ump cam. When they start throwing out players, things like that. It'll be fun. Yeah, that's baseball. That's all I really have for baseball. Like I say, it's still, we're about 60 games in. We're not even halfway through. I think once we get to the All-Star break, it'll be interesting because we'll be getting closer.
For sure. Yeah, and second half baseball is a ton of fun and
Hmm.
you know, kind of keeping an eye out for, the MVP race is going to be fun too. Cal Raleigh's a big name out there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
he's a hitter. We'll see if he could break some records. So, but yeah, that's baseball. Next, we'll go to away from sports. Still, I'll say we covered this a lot a few months ago when it was big news, and It's finally big news again because we have some more info. But the Baldoni versus Blake Lively lawsuit, and it was just announced that the judge dismissed the case. So Justin Baldoni's 400 million countersuit against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds was dismissed by the judge, and I think it's a big surprise to a lot of us. But then hearing why it was dismissed, I somewhat get it, but it's sort of like, uh, how do I say it? You know, are Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds still going to be looked at negatively because of what they said, Because what I read, and correct me if you read anything differently, Tim, the reason the judge sort of dropped this case is because he can't countersue when it was something said in court, because everything that's said in court is sort of some just pretty much protected, so you
Mhm.
can't countersue or sue for, anything from something someone said in court. It sort of stays in court and that's it.
Yeah, no, I read the same, and then I guess where folks are saying that this is beneficial to Baldoni's side is, you can make two amendments, I
Hmm.
suppose, to the original suit and the court docs, and I guess that was needed, and
Hmm.
something that they were kind of seeking.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just seeing the word dismissed is, kind of a tough pill to swallow, I
Yeah.
suppose. But, a lot of folks are saying, obviously reputations are obviously already harmed,
Hmm.
and that's kind of already gone its course. But, and then if I'm not mistaken, Lively, it's no longer an SA allegation any longer, right? I think it's
Mm-mm.
been changed to I don't know the exact verbiage of it, but it's a different type of suit at
Yeah.
this point too. So that's another change with this.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, just kind of surprising news out of nowhere. It was kind of stagnant
Yeah.
for a while, and boom, that portion being dismissed. But let's see if they make those amendments. I think they have 3 weeks, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
I
about
think
20
it's like
days.
3 weeks for them to make the amendment. So we'll see what comes
Mhm.
out of it. But like I said, the biggest news for me, it was dismissed, and like you mentioned, that word dismissed. A lot of people are saying it was all, I think when you first see it, you're like, oh, none of it was true. But then, like I said, you have to read it closely, why it was dismissed, and it was dismissed because everything Baldoni was trying to countersue on was said in court, which is protected. So you can't countersue, which, like you say, for someone that isn't in law, I knew nothing about that. It's very interesting to know that if you go to court, something said that even tarnishes your reputation, you can't sue them, for defamation or anything, if they're saying the most negative things about you because it's protected in court, which is doesn't seem right, but like I say, it's part of the court systems we have to live with, but we'll see
Mhm.
the amendments that they make, and like I say, I still think Lively, Reynolds, their reputation's already been tarnished by this because everything came out of what was said there, and everything that came out, is most likely true. So it's like, yeah, you're not losing 400 million, 250 million from this. You're just losing credibility and, that trust from others.
For sure. Yeah, and the writing's kind of on the wall with that friend group altogether.
Hmm.
And, that kind of people departed that group
Yeah.
altogether. So, that's writing on the wall right there too. And then I guess another thing I read was defamation's just really hard to prove altogether. And
Hmm.
so, that's probably coinciding with, another reason, why this case is dismissed. And, it's yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see where it plays out over the next 20 days. I'm just curious if a new suit comes along, amendments are
Hmm.
made, what the dealio is there. But we'll definitely keep, the banter gossip going and, kind of
Yeah.
continue on with this topic because yeah. But wasn't th this was a curveball I wasn't expecting. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a curveball. Not many were expecting, you know, you could say it's still not over because who knows what's gonna happen. I
Hmm.
think we're all just probably ready to move on, if this is the case. But like I say, it's gonna affect some of these people that were part of the suit. It's affected friendships and, it's even though it's not you're not suing for 400 million, it's still affecting someone's life. So we'll
Yep.
see what ends up with this.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see what happens. Reputations,
Hmm
I won't even say they're on the line anymore. I just think that, they've kind of come and gone. So,
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, that's all with Baldoni Lively. Like I say, we'll wait to hear a little bit more of what happens next. But then the next thing, sort of going into the pixel gaming, our little segment about video games and just, that world. Um, Xbox announced their Xbox Ally X, which is also the handheld Xbox, which I think is a lot probably cooler to say. Ally X, Xbox Ally X just sounds a little weird. I don't know.
yeah.
Um, but what are your thoughts on it, Tim? Because I know you were, as a youngster, more of an Xbox fan probably before PlayStation with Gears of War. So your
Yep.
thoughts on this?
Yeah, yeah. Had the Xbox 360, was really big into that. The games I thought at that point were a lot better than what PlayStation had to offer.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would really, really consider buying this once it drops. The games that are going to be available, I believe they said Steam is available on it. I think that
PC,
that
yeah.
right, yep, PC, I think that's incredible in it of itself right there. Also, the design of it looks great too. It looks
hmm
like, I saw a full-on review of it today where, they're saying that the handles on both sides feel like an Xbox controller,
hmm
moves around like one. The screen looks good, the display looks good. There's going to be two different versions. One is a terabyte, the other one I think is a little bit lesser, gigabytes, but I guess the screen and pixels within the screen are the same resolution.
hmm
So, that'll stay the same, but obviously storage and performance is the only difference between two of the models. Um, but I this one looks a lot better in my opinion compared
Yeah.
to what the Switch 2 was.
hmm
The timing's just immaculate. Where
Yeah.
Switch 2 comes out, it was kind of a flop. I feel like I've seen more memes making fun of it in comparison to people actually enjoying it. But that's
Yeah.
just me, what I've seen. Maybe people are truly
hmm
enjoying it. But this just looks a lot better,
Yeah.
and I saw people reviewing the Switch 2 and I'm saying that the thumbsticks were too low on the way you position your thumb. It
hmm
just doesn't make sense. So there's been quite a few factors, and then I somebody tried pulling up YouTube on the Switch 2, and it said that's not compatible with this device.
Oh, dang.
Some of this stuff is really embarrassing.
Yeah.
But overall, this Xbox handheld is probably what I'm going to call it because I agree, Ally X. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to go get my Ally X. Like, nah,
Yeah.
it's hard pass on that. But I think that this looks great. I think
Yeah.
that this looks like a good product. What do you
Yeah.
think?
No, I think it looks great. I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be a big game changer because handheld gaming, I think it's gonna be the next revolution in gaming. I still
Hmm.
think PlayStation, what they have with the PS5 and whatever they're gonna make in the future, is still gonna be, the best of the best. But we're going into a lot more traveling and handheld, is gonna be the go-to. And what I like you mentioned, what I like about it, you have access to PC games and Steam games, so that's exciting because that's pretty much all computer based. So having a computer at the tips of your finger without having to be sitting at a desk, you could be in the car, you could be on a train, you could be on the plane and playing with your buddies, it could be Modern Warfare, it could be, Counter-Strike, World of Warcraft, things like that. It's gonna be a big game changer. So I'm excited to see how well it does. Um, it has a lot of great storage for something so small. That 1 TB, that's amazing for a
Yeah.
handheld device with a screen, controls, all these other CPU things, and a battery, So it's gonna be awesome. I'm excited about it. Like I say, I always had the Xbox for some of the games, mostly Gears of War, Halo, so I'm excited to see how that goes. And I'm also curious if it's going to be uh, compatible across platforms, sort of like Modern Warfare is, where you can play with
Hmm.
Xbox people. Because if that's the case, I hope PS5, PlayStation, Sony takes a chapter out of this, because I think they'll work on something even better.
Yeah, because in the handheld product that PlayStation has, you have to be local still within your
Yeah,
home, right? So that's
yeah,
that's a huge like, it's
yeah.
like, hey, I'm not gonna, oh, let me pause the game and as I walk to the bathroom, I'm gonna continue playing. Like,
Yeah,
it's
nah.
yeah, I want something like you mentioned, go on a plane,
Mhm.
train, in the car, like
Yeah,
obviously not driving with it, but
yeah,
like just going out and
yeah.
about with it. I think that's sick, and I think that's what handheld gaming is all about.
Hmm.
And just imagine playing like competitive like Gears of War or Call of
Yeah.
Duty like mid-flight. I think that's
Yeah,
crazy.
that'd be awesome. And like I said, it also sort of fixes that sort of problem that you could say you have and sort of we have, like on the weekends when we're traveling. It's you're traveling sometimes down here to visit the family and you don't bring
Mhm.
your PlayStation. So it's like when we're gaming, you
Yep,
can't game because you don't have access to it. But having a
exactly.
handheld device that plays the game, has the same CPU, same graphics as, the console version, it's gonna be a game changer because now you could, once the kids go to sleep, log on like you normally do at 11:30 to like 1 and just play it on your handheld and we're also hanging out, doing what we normally
Yep.
do.
That's exactly right. Yeah, no, that's I mean, and then just bring around your wireless headset and
Yeah.
you're set. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be sick. I it looks I mean it's obviously the start to handheld battles here.
Yeah.
So let's see if PlayStation Sony brings out
Hmm.
something. But yeah, I'm super enticed by this product. I
Oh.
did do we have a release date yet?
No, I don't think I've seen a release date. I think it's probably gonna be announced at CES in Vegas in January when they have that
Invite
convention.
us.
You know, huh?
I said
Invite us,
invite
let us
us.
know,
Yeah.
but I think that's when it'll sort of once they have the model out there, people testing it, I think they'll have a release date for that convention.
And Xbox handheld before GTA 6 question mark. It's gonna be the new
Maybe.
thing.
Yeah. Like I said,
Another great game
can't
to play on it.
yeah, it'll be a great game to play on it. The question is like, is it smart for Xbox to release it before GTA 6 or after GTA 6? Because you
Ooh.
release it before GTA 6, you could sort of take a lot of profit from that because of the game. You have something amazing and people aren't going to want to play GTA. But at the same time, it's a risk because everybody wants GTA. If
Oh
you
yeah.
talk to people about the most anticipated game, 99% of the people I think will say GTA 6.
Oh yeah.
So,
You're exactly right. Yeah. No, it's but I think that's gonna be super dope. But you're in a public place, you're gaming with
mhm,
buddies, let's just say,
yeah.
you're on a red eye flight and are people just imagine like you're trying to fall asleep on the plane but then you have like buddy behind you like oh I'm going B like people
Yeah,
yelling
yeah.
that'd be so
Yeah.
funny.
He's too shy. He's too shy.
Yeah,
He's one
right.
shy.
He's broken. Yeah, it's gonna be so funny, dude, like
Uh,
Warzone with that.
oh yeah.
Uh, um and I think didn't they kind of coincide the Black Ops 7 kind of trailer with
Hmm.
this announcement? And obviously
Yeah.
that's going to be something that is going to be paired with this release.
Hmm.
So, maybe we'll see it before Christmas,
Maybe. Yeah,
might be a
maybe we
smart play.
will. It will be, releasing it with the next Call of Duty. Uh for me, the next Call of Duty, not really a fan of it. May
Yeah.
not really purchase that one and save the money for the, you know, premium version of GTA.
Yeah, Fidel was giving me some slack about Battlefield and I'm like, you know what? I feel like I've higher hopes at this point even though the last Battlefield was pretty garbage.
Hmm.
But honestly, I just think I'm looking for something different. Obviously
Hmm.
the friend group, if people are playing it, that's going to make a difference in my decision.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't like futuristic Call of Duties. I've never
No.
been into them. My favorite ones are Call of Duty 4, MW2, and just those styles of
Hmm.
gameplay where it's just a little bit more realism. Wall running jetpacks.
Yeah.
Just not into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I never was a fan of him. I think the first ones that came out, I truly didn't buy those games. And that was all pre-COVID. I think after once COVID hit, I have bought every Call of Duty because of the friend group hanging out, being able to
Yep,
play. But before that, like when I saw the futuristic ones, I'm like, I'm gonna pass. I'll stick with my old one. I'll stick with FIFA, NBA, Madden,
yep,
Fallout. I had a better things to do. So
exactly.
I think I'm for sure gonna pass, even if all of you guys get it. I still may not get it because like I said, GTA is coming out. This is probably going to be an $80 game, and I'd rather put that $80 with another $80 towards GTA and maybe that second level tier.
Yeah, no, I am with you on that. Yeah, I'd have to see more of the footage that comes out, but so far I'm just really unimpressed
Yeah.
with the trailer. That just not my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's Xbox handheld. I think as we get more news, more alerts about it, more games that come out, we'll sort of talk about it more, and we'll see console wars. We'll see what's next, who's next also, because like I said, there's
Yeah,
probably going to be a lot more people coming out with console games, so it'll be interesting to see. Um, Yeah, but that's our episode today. Like I said, there wasn't too much, but we still talk about a lot. We're always here for quite a while,
hmm.
chattering. Thanks everybody that joined us on our TikTok live. Thanks for all those that liked, gifts, those that are watching us on YouTube. Thank you. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Music, hit that follow button, get those alerts, and always leave us comments. We enjoy the engagement. We enjoy chatting, so we appreciate it.
Absolutely, good or bad. We're
Mhm.
not we're this is takes that we have, and of course, everybody has a right to an opinion. So
Yeah,
good or bad, we're always up for it, and we appreciate it. So,
yeah,
it's what makes banter fun. It's literally in
it
the
is.
name. So
Yes, it's
that's what we're here
Banter on the
for.
Rocks. Continue bantering with us on our comments. We enjoy it. We enjoy that engagement. So we appreciate it. Everybody take care, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace. Thank
Peace.
you.